And now you know why I get so frustrated with this game. Greetings everyone and welcome to my channel. Well, you don't have to tell me that Tears of the Kingdom is popular right now, with Nintendo selling over 10 million units in just 3 days. But does that make it good? Or is this really just overpriced DLC for Breath of the Wild? Well, let's find out. Also, while I'll do my best not to spoil anything story-wise, I will be talking about things that happen throughout the game, so some minor spoilers at least for this video. I will get more in-depth and spoilery in another video.
Okay. Now
When it comes to the overall narrative of this game, if taken by itself, it is one of the best Zelda narratives. As a sequel to Breath of the Wild, though, it's not perfect. Too many plot holes to keep it from being 100% enjoyable pop up. Things like how long has it been? Why are some of these characters changing their roles? And there's just so many plot holes when it comes to things like what's the difference between Ganondorf and Calamity Ganon, that it's just amazing, but I'll cover that in another video. Basically, though, this one starts a couple of years after Breath of the Wild, as seen by Yunobo now being an adult, and Hudson has a daughter that looks like she's about 5. Anyways, a new threat besets upon Hyrule, called Gloom, which, if you get too close to the stuff, it will zap your life force away. Zelda and Link explore beneath Hyrule Castle to find its source, only to find a mummy of a man who comes alive. Then he says that this mummy recognizes them, and then it attacks them. This causes Link to lose his hearts and vitality faster than Samus losing all her suit upgrades at the beginning of a Metroid game, and the Master Sword breaks, well, just as easy and as fast as any other weapon in the game. Zelda falls down a hole and gets teleported away, while Link tries to catch her only to pass out, but not before a hand can grab him and teleport him out of there. That hand belongs to an ancient sage named Rauru. And yes, this is supposed to be that guy, only now he's another species entirely called Zonai. At any rate, Link wakes up sometime later, and yes, it would be funny if it was 7 years, but it's not told. It's been a few months considering his hair growth. At any rate, we find out Ganon's attacks destroyed Link's right hand, so Rauru gave Link his right hand, and it comes with a bevy of new upgrades. After exploring a tutorial area that is exactly like the Great Plateau, but only lamer, and there are even a few lines and landmarks with the same name, and you can count on Rauru stalking you, kind of like the woodsman in the Breath of the Wild as you go through the area. But after you get all your abilities you can learn with the hand and get to the Temple of Time, you get the ability to go back down to Hyrule, where the game story now breaks into 2 plots. The first plot A follows our hero Link as he explores Hyrule during the Age of Upheaval and has to once again visit the 4 tribes in the 4 corners of Hyrule and recruit a sage among each of the members. There are plenty of other side stories to boot. Zone ruins are dropping onto the land like Tetris pieces in a game of, well, Tetris. Otano Village is having an election, and Hyrule Field is now a place where you kind of start off exploring and gathering goods for upgrades because Zelda recycled all but one of the Guardians, so Hyrule Field is actually now a safe place. That just feels so odd after playing through Breath of the Wild so much to just explore this field and not get shot at. At any rate, Zelda B story, which can be found by finding a tear inside a lot of these glyphs, is pretty interesting. It follows what happened to Zelda. Zelda gets isekai'd into another time and place where she meets Rauru and his wife Sonia, gets souped up OP superpowers, and has to fight a Demon King. Really, all you have to do is throw in a bunch of brain dead, harem, busty teenage girls into the mix, and you would have a full on isekai. Still, how this tale ends and how it goes with the A story is shocking. When you understand what Zelda means by Link, you must find me from the trailer, it's kind of shocking. Thrown in that this particular incarnation of Zelda went through hell and back in Breath of the Wild. And I'm not talking about being holed up with calamity for 100 years. The rest of the stuff she'd endured was also pretty hellacious. She went through enough before to earn her a full-time lifespan of psychiatry bills. But she then goes through that and to protect her people and give Link one last chance in fighting this demon king, basically sells herself up for a lifetime of hell and torment. And it's just kind of amazing. It makes me kind of want to find her and rescue her, not because of some sort of destiny or because the bad guys have her and yada yada yada, typical Zelda stuff, but because the first game, Breath of the Wild, set up what type of character she is, the stuff she's been through, the trauma she's been through, the fact that she's willing to go through even more stuff just to give us one more chance to nail Ganondorf's ass to the wall makes me appreciate her even more and want to help her out. So, yeah, I enjoyed the B story. The A story is pretty good too. Overall, like I said, the story's pretty good if you kind of self-contain it. There are problems with the way it mixes with Breath of the Wild, and if you're trying to figure out how this fits in with the rest of the timeline, all I can say is Bud Light's really cheap as of this recording. Oh boy, there is a lot to go over here, as this is a huge game with many moving parts, and while yes, I did hate some of it, and I do mean hate, there's just as much to love. First, let's get over the first criticism that this is a Breath of the Wild expansion pack. Not really. Yes, it does use Hyrule from Breath of the Wild. However, it does so in a way anyone who ever grew up in a small town can identify with. In order to get a good job or find a reliable life partner, had to head to the big city. Head back home after a few years and everything has changed. Sure, you can still navigate the streets like the back of your hand, but everyone who lives there, where they're at, the business, the culture, that's all changed, and they're never going to be the same. It's exactly where the phrase, "you can't go back home again," comes from. The Hyrule in this game feels exactly like that. Yeah, you know where Tino and Kakariko Village are located, but they're not the same village. Kakariko is no longer a sleepy village ruled by Impa, filled with ninjas and pumpkin patches. It's a thriving tourist destination filled with scientists studying the Zonai ruins that have fallen nearby. Tino is now in the middle of a culture war of traditional farming or should their future be in fashion? So that's the debate among the citizens. Goron City is no longer filled with lava. Rather, it's cool and now everyone can visit there without spontaneously combusting. Just beware that Goron City now has a narcotics problem. Zora Domain has gotten over Mipha's death, and Sidon is about to take leadership and even has a new wife. In fact, the whole story has a life change and new leaders come and go as part of the narrative of each race, except for the Gerudo, who still have their teenage leader, who has grown a little bit since last time. All the races have new leaders either installed or about to ascend to the chief spot. Then you can throw in things like Sky Tower, Sky Island, a parallel dark world that exists underground instead of in another dimension, and there's a whole lot of new stuff to explore here. So anyone saying this is a $10 expansion pack going for $70 is completely full of it. With that said, it's okay to question Nintendo for their $10 price increase. The game still reuses a lot of assets, and I don't believe the above criticism is there. That said, I did buy the two games for $100 voucher that Nintendo has, and I decided to pre-order the Super Mario RPG remake that's coming out in October. So I'll let you know how that is when October gets here. Anyways, getting back on track, I do want to discuss why a lot of people dislike the tutorial area in this game, and it's probably the hardest one to get past since Twilight Princess. The Great Plateau felt like it was part of Hyrule in Breath of the Wild. It felt it was right in the middle of it. You could see the calamity and all the trouble around you as you completed the area to get the paraglider to get down to the mainland of Hyrule. These Sky Islands, on the other hand, you don't feel like you're in Hyrule. It's not Hyrule, you're above it. You know there's trouble because you just saw Ganondorf wake up, but you can't see what's going on. Instead, you feel like you're forced into an area that was rejected out of Mario Galaxy for several hours until you get a good understanding of Link's new powers. There's just a part of you that just says, I want to take my new arm, get down to Hyrule so I can start saving the day. Also find those Elric brothers and start killing some of those state dogs of the military while I'm at it. But no, I'm stuck up here and there's just a disconnect. So the start of the game can be tough for a lot of players, and I can understand why. So let's get back to what I kind of didn't like and really hated in this game. So here we go. If you are someone who likes to spend hours in the customization of a vehicle, like games where you build things and things are heavily customizable, you're gonna love this game. If you're like me, when he gets to these parts, he uses the auto build section, tweaks one or two things because he wants to get to other parts of the game. All I can say is, welcome to hell. This game's main feature is the Ultra Hand building mechanic, where you can stick things together to build vehicles and flying contraptions. To explore the world, and yes, even I had some fun at this, but occasionally the puzzles involving things get a bit too obtuse or so perfectionist that I got a bit frustrated. I'm not very good at building things, so worrying about weight or wheel placement really got frustrating for me. Oh, and the puzzle shrines. Fuck the puzzle shrines. In Breath of the Wild, the puzzle shrines were a decent enough substitute for the fact that we didn't have good dungeons. They were something to find and seek out in the overworld to do extra quests, go in and then do a quick puzzle or fight against a souped up robot and get something we can trade in for more life after we collected a few of them. They usually took up 10 to 15 minutes of your time, with a few out of the way ones that were harder to give the completionists a run for their money, which was a bit on the long side, but there were only one or two of these. Not in Tears of the Kingdom. Now every freaking shrine will at least have multiple puzzles. There were so many times when I was like to build that device and complete that puzzle took 15 minutes, but I managed to crack it and open the door in time to go to the room, and I'm like, time to collect my light medallion and get the hell out of here so I can get that harp piece. Only to hear what I swear was Rauru going, thinking, oh, you think this is the end? This is room 1 of 5, and the next build and puzzle is going to be twice as big and more complex. Expect to spend the next 3 hours trying to solve the shrine. Hey, wait, why are you teleporting out of here with both middle fingers raised? Aw, I made s'mores. The shrines don't appear to be goals to help you with exploration. They're no longer fun diversions. They are now full-on roadblocks, and about a good dozen that I encountered, I just gave up, even after I looked up a guide just because of the amount of work I had to do building or just the clumsiness of it. I will say I love what they did with the battle shrines. They are now far more interesting, making you think about the combat choices, but a lot of the building ones were just way too big, way too complex, took way too much of my time. I know there's going to be a lot of people who disagree with me on this, but I hated how the shrines were put together in this one. The temples were a bit better, though, each unique theme lasting a bit longer and having the puzzles seem to be more fitting. All but one, the fire temple. Yeah, water temple from Ocarina of Time, you have been dethroned as the most aggravating temple that is slow paced, and I have to go back to the same place over and over again. That now belongs to the fire temple, and you can screw those mine carts while you're at it. That's it, the rest of the game is fun, and I love the use of the other powers. Fusion lets you make better weapons using monster parts, so no longer you have to worry about breaking that rare sword quite as much. But Hyrulings seem to still like making their weapons out of glass. Rewind lets you reverse time for an object, not only undoing a mistake, but even capitalizing it. It's a fun way to break some of the dungeons. And Ascending lets you get out of the cave and on top of the mountain. It's kind of a fun use. Upgrading your Zonai power items so you can power up bigger buildings and a lot of side quests, both above and underground, make this game seem big, despite Hyrule now being quite a bit smaller. I'm saying that it's smaller because you can build airplanes or build cars to drive over things, or hell, just shoot yourself out of one of these Sheikah towers and glide over to that tall mountain you may have trouble climbing before. So the extras are fun, the Sky Islands are not memorable, but they do have good puzzles, and exploring them does give you a lot of great loot. They're not perfect, but I enjoyed exploring the Sky Islands. As far as the game length, like Breath of the Wild, once you get through the tutorial area, done, you just have to get to Hyrule Castle, or beneath Hyrule Castle, and fight Ganondorf. Granted, if you're probably going to die of gloom poisoning if you go that route. However, exploring and completing the story objectives will get you the sages who will fight alongside you and kind of like a party. That said, they're not that useful, but some of their powers do come in handy occasionally, with the exception of this freaking mech. Yeah, you'd think riding a mech would be fun in a Zelda game, but you'd be so wrong. You always seem to hop on it when you're just trying to do something else, and it's a very clumsy fighting machine. Other than that, there are Korok challenges that I want to talk about. I'm no completionist, so I really didn't care about them. Just give me enough seeds so I can have enough equipment slots and I'll be happy. But there are new challenges where you have to take a Korok back to its camp, and you can do that, or you can decide to send that little Korok to the moon. It's your choice. But they're a lot of fun to just blow up if you want to let off some of the steam because of, frustrations with building things. Anyways, gameplay with Breath of the Wild isn't perfect. There's a lot of problems, but at the same time, I gotta admire the ambition behind it. I think Breath of the Wild found a great art style for Zelda. Not overly dark or realistic, but not so cartoony that I can't take it seriously either. This is a very mature looking anime style, really fits the game, and the draw distance and details are better here than they were in Breath of the Wild. Performance still dips sometimes, but only in a few places where there's a lot going on. Case in point, the Satori Apple Grove, where Nintendo also threw in a few monsters and animals to hunt in the area, and until you get rid of them or pick up several apples, the game is handling too much and the game starts acting like Sword Art Online. But there's only a small handful of areas. This is not Pokemon Scarlet. There are some great remixes and new tracks that I found I liked. For example, when you go into the Rito Village, the soundtrack that plays there is a kind of ice themed version of the Rito soundtrack. And it plays this while it's under Ganondorf's ice curse. But like the last time, the music takes a back seat to the atmosphere in Tears of the Kingdom. That's okay and it's fitting, but there's not a lot to love about the soundtrack since it is so quiet. When it comes to the voice acting, I say it's overall pretty good. Most of the ones are professional. Yes, the person playing Zelda can be a bit flat sometimes.
We'll keep going, with it coming up from beneath Hyrule Castle.
But it's not an easy role as much as she changes her emotions, especially when she is kind of in this dark Zelda emotional zone, like for example when the Blood Moon plays.
Witness the blood moon's rise. When its red glow shines upon the land, the aimless spirits of slain monsters return to flesh. Just as they did in a war long past.
Overall, I enjoyed the sound in this package. Do I enjoy Zelda Tears of the Kingdoms? Yes, for the most part. Is it perfect? Oh, hell no! The shrines are too long. Unless you like building things, you might get a bit bored or frustrated on how much the game depends on you doing that. But the overworld is still fun to explore. The story is great as long as you don't nitpick the continuity problems. And overall, I really had a good time with it. It's well worth the $70. I think this is going to be a classic game despite all its faults. Anyways, this is Tommy the Game Master signing out. Please leave a like if you found this video useful, and please subscribe to my channel. You have a wonderful day. Bye!